Welcome back. Find a comfortable position and let your body get heavy. Take a slow breath in and let it out. There's nothing you need to do right now. Know where you need to be. Tonight, I have 5 stories for you. Let them wash over you. You don't need to follow along closely. Just let the words carry you. Let's begin. The kitchen was bright and warm that morning, filled with the rich scent of freshly baked bread, its crust golden and crackling with warmth. I could hear the occasional pop and hiss from the oven as one loaf settled in its confines. Golden light seeped through the window, warming the old wooden table that had seen more meals than I could count. Each scratch and dent on its surface told a story, memories swirling in the air like the steam rising from my cup of chamomile tea. The world outside was still waking up. A gentle breeze rustled the leaves of the apple tree, and a few stray birds flitted across the blue sky, chirping their morning songs. In the distance, the faint sound of a lawnmower droned lazily, punctuating the quiet of the early hours. I sat there, cradling my cup with both hands, savoring the warmth that spread through my palms, thinking about the day ahead. There was a special feeling in the air, a soft anticipation that hovered just above the mundane. Today marked a year since Grandma Hazel had passed. She had always been the heart of our family, a woman whose laughter could light up the darkest corners of our lives. I could see her now, stirring a pot of her famous chicken noodle soup on rainy days, her apron dusted with flour, humming an old tune as she worked. The kitchen would fill with her gentle melodies, a comfort that wrapped around us like a favorite blanket. As my mind wandered, I could almost hear her voice, light and playful, teasing me about how much sugar I added to my tea. I giggled softly at the memory, the bittersweet ache of loss mingling with fondness and warmth. It was this blend of flavors that made remembering her so rich, and I felt grateful for the moments we had shared. The sun climbed higher, and soon the smell of bread outshone everything else, beckoning my attention. Just as I pulled the loaf from the oven, a soft knock came from the front door. I dried my hands on the dish towel and patted across the cool tile floor. Opening the door, I was greeted by the smiling face of my neighbor, Tom. He always seemed to have a knack for showing up just when I needed company. "Morning. I brought you some flowers," he said cheerfully, holding out a small bouquet of sunflowers and daisies, their bright colors a burst of happiness against the soft green of his shirt. I could see the warmth in his eyes, the kindness that always made me feel a little lighter. "Thank you, Tom. They're lovely," I replied, accepting the flowers with a genuine smile. We stood there for a moment, soaking in the sunshine, listening to the distant sound of laughter from children playing in yards nearby. "How about coffee?" I suggested, gesturing back toward the kitchen. "I just pulled some bread out of the oven." Tom's eyes brightened, and he stepped inside, his smile wide and infectious. The kitchen felt fuller now, the air buzzing softly with our shared memories and light banter. We chatted about the latest happenings in town, the upcoming harvest festival, how Mrs. Hargrove had finally given in and painted her porch a cheerful yellow, and how the local bookshop had started hosting poetry readings on Thursday evenings. As we sipped our coffee, I felt the weight of the day begin to lift, the memories of Grandma Hazel imbuing our conversation with a sweetness that lingered even as the topic shifted to the more trivial parts of life. Tom had a way of making everything feel lighter, more manageable. But as the morning wore on, I found myself drifting occasionally, the warmth of nostalgia filling my heart. There were moments when my thoughts would return to my grandmother, the way she had a habit of knitting little squares of fabric into blankets for anyone who needed one, and how she always knew exactly what to say when I was feeling lost. I closed my eyes briefly, imagining her rocking chair near the fireplace, a cozy quilt draped across her lap, her needles clicking away like a soothing metronome. The sunlight shifted in the room as the hours passed, casting long shadows across the walls. Tom and I fell into a comfortable silence, enjoying the simple act of being together. I could feel the pull of the day, the bittersweet weight of remembrance settling softly on my heart, a reminder of love and loss woven into the fabric of my life. "Want to go for a walk?" Tom finally asked, breaking the silence, a hint of sunbeams glinting off his glasses as he looked at me expectantly. I thought it might be nice to visit the park, maybe sit by the pond for a while. Sounds lovely, I replied, feeling a smile blossom. The park was just a few blocks away, a small pocket of nature filled with trees well over 100 years old, their branches stretching out like welcoming arms. We stepped outside, the lightness of the day wrapping around us like a warm hug. The gentle breeze tousled my hair as we ambled along the path, our footsteps creating a soft rhythm that harmonized with the distant chatter of children playing. I felt the tension in my shoulders ease as we made our way toward the park, the beauty of the world around us reminding me that life continued to unfold elegantly, even in the midst of loss. As we reached the pond, I noticed the way the sunlight danced across the water, creating sparkling patterns that twinkled like stars scattered in the sky. We settled on a wooden bench, the familiar scent of earth and grass surrounding us, blending together in a way only nature could orchestrate. Can you believe how beautiful it is? Tom mused, looking out at the water, his expression thoughtful. I nodded in agreement, sensing a warmth rising in my chest. I often come here when I want to think, he continued. It reminds me that even when things feel heavy, there's always beauty waiting to be found. I watched the ducks gliding effortlessly across the pond, their feathers shimmering like polished jade under the sun. It's comforting, I said softly, glancing at Tom, to know that life keeps moving, that nature doesn't pause for grief. We sat in companionable silence, letting the moment linger, each of us with our thoughts. I let my gaze drift to the clouds floating lazily above, their forms shifting and reshaping, and I found myself reflecting on Grandma Hazel again. She had always been one for long walks and quiet moments, and I could almost hear her laughter harmonizing with nature's melodies. The sun began to dip lower in the sky, painting everything in golden hues, and I felt the bittersweet ache fade just a little more. It was a gentle reminder that letting go didn't mean forgetting. It was an invitation to carry those memories forward, to weave them into the fabric of my everyday life. I could almost hear her now, encouraging me to embrace joy amid the sorrow, to find laughter in the air like the songs of the birds overhead. The shadows grew longer, and I took a deep breath, allowing the day to settle quietly around me. I felt a profound sense of connection, not only to Grandma Hazel, but also to my neighbor, to the town, to the world around us that continued to thrive. As the sky transitioned to twilight, we made our way back home, the warmth of the day still clinging to us like a gentle embrace. The evening light painted everything in soft pastels, and I felt a quiet gratitude swell within me. All of life was a tapestry woven with threads of joy and loss, laughter and tears, and I was learning to appreciate it all. Finally reaching my home, the front door creaked open, and I stepped inside, the familiar warmth wrapping around me like a welcoming blanket. Tom paused for a moment before saying goodbye, a bright smile on his face. "Let's do this again soon," he said. "Yes, please," I replied, knowing that these moments of connection were treasures I wanted to hold on to. Once inside, I set the flowers in a small vase on the kitchen table, the cheerful sunflowers standing tall among the daisies, brightening the room even further. The early evening settled in, and I could hear the soft hum of crickets outside, welcoming the night in their gentle chorus. I poured myself another cup of chamomile tea, savoring the stillness, absorbing the warmth that lingered from both the day and the cherished memories that surrounded me. As the evening deepened, I felt a soft sense of peace settling in my heart. I took a deep breath, letting it fill my chest as I closed my eyes for a moment, the sweet weight of contentment drawing me towards stillness. That inviting quietness embraced me, and I felt grateful for the connections I had forged, for the warmth of the past, and for the promise of tomorrow. With the soft glow of the lamp illuminating the space, I let out a gentle sigh, feeling the coolness of the evening settle in. I wrapped myself in a lightweight blanket, the fabric soft against my skin, and let my mind drift to the gentle cadence of the world outside. as I sank deeper into the comfort of home, knowing that I was exactly where I needed to be. And as I glanced one last time at the vibrant flowers on the table, the colors fading softly into the dusk, I whispered a quiet thank you, feeling the weight of the day slip away, cradled by the promise of dreams yet to come. Let yourself relax as we begin the next story. It was one of those quiet afternoons in early spring when the world felt just on the cusp of blooming. I can still remember how the air held that gentle warmth, like a soft blanket just beginning to unravel. I had found a small cafe tucked away on a side street, the kind of place that seemed to exist solely for moments of stillness. The wooden sign above the door swayed slightly in the breeze, creaking ever so softly as if greeting each customer with a welcoming sigh. Inside, the light was golden, filtering through the window panes that seemed slightly smudged with the light dust of early morning. I settled into a worn leather chair that had molded itself perfectly to the shape of those who had come before. The rich aroma of coffee mingled with the sweet scent of pastries, a promise of indulgence that hovered in the air. I ordered a cappuccino, the barista flashing a warm smile that softened the creases of her brow, and I watched as she expertly coaxed the froth into delicate shapes atop the coffee. I took my drink to a small table by the window, where I could watch the world meander by. A light rain began to patter against the glass, each drop chasing the other in a playful race. I sipped my cappuccino, letting the warmth spread through me, and pulled out a notebook. I was capturing thoughts, memories, little moments that felt too fragile to hold in my mind alone. As I wrote, I recalled a time when I was younger, still feeling my way through the world, unsure and searching for my place. I could almost see her, my younger self, sitting there in a cafe like this one, feeling the weight of uncertainty. When I was that age, I often wished for something, a kind word, a nod of understanding from a stranger. I imagined this younger self, peering through the window, hoping for a glimmer of connection in the crowded hum of life. And then, as if the universe had overheard my silent wishes, a figure caught my eye through the window. An elderly man shuffled along the sidewalk, his pace slow and deliberate, as if he had all the time in the world. He wore a well-loved cap, slightly askew, and a long overcoat that seemed to possess many stories. The way he moved spoke of a quiet strength, the kind forged over years of laughter, and perhaps a few tears. He paused outside the cafe, glancing in, and for a moment our eyes met through the glass. There was something comforting in that brief connection, an unspoken understanding. I watched as he took a deep breath, the kind that seems to settle the body and soul alike, and then he stepped inside. The bell above the door jingled softly, a sound so familiar in places like this, and he made his way to the counter. I could hear him ordering a simple black coffee. As he waited, I watched him scan the room, his gaze landing on me for just a heartbeat longer before moving on. There was no urgency in his demeanor, just a warm curiosity that put my mind at ease. When he finally received his coffee, he turned to the tables, looking for a place to sit. The cafe had filled up, yet the only available table was the one directly across from me. With a slight nod, he approached, his movements steady but softened by the weight of time. "Mind if I join you?" he asked, his voice gentle, like the breeze outside, which carried whispers of spring. "Oh, not at all," I replied, surprised yet welcoming. He settled into the chair, and as he took a sip of his coffee, I glimpsed a hint of joy in his eyes. Perhaps it was the taste or the moment itself that brought such radiance. We began to chat, the conversation flowing effortlessly like a gentle stream. He shared small stories about his life, bits of wisdom tucked between the lines. His laughter filled the air, bringing with it a sense of belonging, as if we had known each other longer than this brief encounter. He spoke of his late wife and the garden they tended together, and how they used to share their favorite blooms with anyone who passed by. "It's amazing how just a small act of kindness can brighten someone's day," he mused, his gaze sweeping toward the window, where the raindrops danced in delight. I found myself laughing softly at his tales of mishaps while gardening, like the time he accidentally planted tomatoes instead of petunias, leading to an unexpected harvest of curious neighbors and friends. Every story felt like a warm hug, wrapping around my heart and settling in. As I listened, I thought about my younger self, wishing for a moment just like this. The kind of gentle connection that reminds us we are never truly alone. If only she could see me now, seated at this table, sharing laughter and warmth with a stranger who felt like a friend. The rain began to fall more heavily, a rhythmic tap-tap-tap that created a comforting backdrop to our conversation. I watched him as he spoke, his hands animated, his eyes sparkling with the joy of sharing. I noticed how the light from the window illuminated his face, casting a soft glow that made each wrinkle a testament to a life well lived. Time seemed to drift, and I found myself wanting this moment to stretch on. A cocoon of warmth wrapped around us both. Yet, as the cafe filled to bursting with the sounds of laughter, clinking cups, I felt a gentle tug in my heart, as if the universe were calling us back to our respective lives. "Thank you for sharing this moment with me," he said, his voice steady, laced with sincerity. "You have a kind spirit, and I hope you hold on to it." I could feel those words brush against my younger self's wishes, like a gentle breeze whispering that kindness could always find its way home. As he rose to leave, I felt a pang of reluctance, but also a deep gratitude for the unexpected connection we shared. We exchanged smiles, and I watched as he disappeared back into the rain, his silhouette blending with the world outside. With a soft sigh, I turned my gaze back to the window. The rain had begun to lighten, and a few brave souls ventured out, umbrellas unfurling like flowers blossoming in the spring. The cafe, too, felt a little different now, filled with the essence of shared warmth and unexpected kindness. I took a final sip of my cappuccino, savoring the remnants of warmth that lingered, and picked up my notebook again. I began to write down the essence of that meeting, the small moments of connection that echoed within me. Each word felt like an embrace, capturing the kindness that had floated in from the world outside, and I knew that this would be a story I would carry with me always. As evening settled in, the cafe softened into a quieter glow. I closed my notebook, took a deep breath, and allowed the gentleness of the day to cradle me as I stood to leave. The world outside was cool and fresh, and I felt the last droplets of rain kiss my cheeks in a soft farewell. In that moment, I was grateful, not just for the warmth I had felt inside the cafe, but for the reminder that kindness could appear when least expected, stitching together lives in the most ordinary of places. I walked away with a lightness in my heart, knowing that wherever my journey led, I would always find my way back to that moment, that connection, and the joy of sharing a little kindness with a stranger. The streetlights began to flicker on, a gentle glow illuminating my path home. I could hear the soft rustle of leaves as the evening breeze whispered secrets among them. Everything felt just right, as if the world had paused to let me breathe in the beauty of simple things. As I turned the key in my door and stepped inside, I felt a wave of peace wash over me. Home. Dot. The quiet enveloped me, the stillness settling like a warm blanket. I smiled, thinking of that unexpected encounter, and the way it had touched my heart. Moments like these remind us of the simple connections that weave through our lives, creating a tapestry of warmth and kindness. With that thought cradled in my mind, I made my way to the soft glow of my reading lamp. I turned it off, letting the room fade into a gentle darkness that held the promise of a new day. And in that peaceful end, I felt my heart swell with gratitude, knowing that kindness was always just a moment away, waiting to find us when we least expected it. The world was quiet, and I drifted into sweet dreams, surrounded by the soft echoes of laughter and the warmth of a stranger's kindness. Let yourself relax as we begin the next story. It was a Saturday afternoon, and the sun hung lazily in the sky, casting a warm glow over our little town. The scent of freshly cut grass wafted through the air, mingling sweetly with the faint aroma of homemade apple pie cooling on the windowsill. I remember sitting on the porch, my favorite wicker chair creaking gently beneath me, the chill from my iced tea dancing on my fingertips. The world felt absolutely still, save for the occasional rustle of leaves and the distant laughter of children playing in the yard across the street. In that moment, everything was perfect. Neighbors waved as they passed by, the kind of casual greetings built on years of familiarity. It was the sort of Saturday where time seemed to stretch, where the hours moved at their own leisurely pace, and where nothing felt urgent. Not the laundry that could wait until tomorrow, nor the groceries that were only a short walk away. I had decided to simply enjoy the day, watching the clouds drift lazily by, their shapes morphing into fantastical creatures with each passing moment. As I leaned back, letting the sun warm my face, I couldn't help but think about Mr. Thompson, our local mailman, who had a habit of talking just a bit too loudly as he shuffled past my house, sharing tidbits of gossip like it was an Olympic sport. He had been delivering mail for as long as I could remember, his presence woven into the fabric of our days. But lately, he'd taken to boasting about his prize-winning garden, and for some reason, it irked me. Perhaps it was the way he emphasized the prize, as if we were all meant to applaud his achievements. I sighed, amused at my own pettiness, imagining the Thompson Garden tour he might one day host, complete with pamphlets and refreshments. That afternoon, as I sat sipping my tea, I noticed the garden tools leaning carelessly against the fence, left there for my own modest attempts at gardening. My few paltry plants were tucked in a corner, unremarkable at best, but they were mine. A thought sparked, the tiniest flicker of mischief. What if I were to give Mr. Thompson a little nudge in the right direction? Nothing too mean, of course. Just a gentle reminder that sometimes it's not all about the accolades. The idea brewed quietly in my mind, and I chuckled softly to myself. It wouldn't be hard to pull off. After all, the local gardening group was hosting the annual flower show next weekend. I could easily borrow a few of his prized blooms for my own display. It seemed harmless enough, a playful wink at the universe, I thought. As dusk settled over the horizon, painting the sky in shades of pink and lavender, I made my way to his garden. The air had cooled, and the gentle hum of crickets filled the evening silence, creating a kind of symphony that welcomed the night. Mr. Bell. Thompson's backyard was a vibrant tapestry of colors, with flowers blooming in fantastic abundance. I carefully picked a few. After all, it wouldn't hurt to borrow a sprig or two, right? I made sure to take only the ones that seemed to stand out the most, the ones that were sure to grab attention. The thrill of my little subterfuge sent a lightness through me. I smiled to myself, admiring my handiwork as I arranged the flowers into a makeshift bouquet. They were so lovely, and I imagined the look on Mr. Thompson's face when he saw them at the show. I chuckled softly, picturing him bursting with pride, showing off what he believed to be his own handiwork. Once I had finished, I placed my little arrangement on the porch, the petals glowing softly in the dimming light. The flowers felt like a secret mission, a harmless prank that would add a sprinkle of humor to our small-town lives. My heart felt lighter with the anticipation of the next week. I could hardly wait to see what would unfold at the flower show. The following weekend arrived, and I found myself standing amidst the hustle and bustle of the local community hall, the air thick with the scent of baked goods and flowers. The room was vibrant, adorned with colorful arrangements vying for attention. Vendors chatted animatedly, laughter echoing off the walls, creating an atmosphere thick with joy and competition. I spotted Mr. Thompson immediately, his face aglow with excitement as he shared stories with anyone who would listen, his hands gesturing wildly. I could see the pride in his eyes, a glimmer that suggested he truly believed he had cornered the market on floral perfection. As I made my way to my little booth, I felt a flutter of nerves, the kind that often accompanied a playful act of mischief. In my corner, my modest bouquet of borrowed blooms was poised elegantly, standing out despite its humble origins. I arranged the flowers just so, a testament to my own effort and imagination. a cool breeze of confidence taking root as the crowd began to gather. The laughter of neighbors mixed with the clinking of glasses and the occasional cheer, wrapping around me like a cozy blanket. As the judges made their rounds, I could feel the tension rising just a bit. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. Mr. Thompson approached my booth, an inquisitive look on his face, and I could barely contain a smile as he examined the pretty arrangement. There was a flicker of confusion in his eyes, quickly masked by a wave of recognition, and he let out a small chuckle. "Why, those are lovely. I didn't realize I had such competition," he exclaimed, gently shaking his head, perhaps already sensing the playfulness of the situation. I couldn't help but laugh, letting the moment roll over us like a warm wave. As the evening wore on, I watched him circle back to his own display, his pride still simmering, but now tinged with curiosity. He leaned in to inspect his flowers, and in a moment of clarity, an appreciative grin crossed his face. "Looks like you've got a good eye for beauty," he said, his tone warm. It felt like he was acknowledging not just the flowers in my hands, but the shared laughter and lightness that surrounded us. As the sun dipped lower, casting a soft golden haze over the hall, I let go of the little ruse that had made the day so delightful. We mingled among friends and neighbors, the evening melting into a shared celebration of talent and creativity. And as the gentle hum of the crowd enveloped me, I felt a deep sense of connection, knowing that sometimes the best part of a little mischief was how it brought us closer together. Later, as I nestled into bed, the faint sounds of laughter still echoing from the hall, I smiled to myself. The world was indeed a kind place. The flowers, the jokes, the moments shared, in no small part thanks to the gentle teasing that hung in the air. Outside, the cicadas hummed their low, steady lullaby, and I drifted off to sleep, feeling grateful for the little joys that make life so wonderfully simple. Take a deep breath, and let's move on to the next one. The late afternoon sun poured through the kitchen window, casting a warm golden hue across the countertops. A soft breeze fluttered the white lace curtains as the faint scent of freshly baked bread wafted in from the oven. I could almost hear the gentle hum of the neighborhood, children laughing outside, the distant grumble of a lawnmower, and the rhythmic chirping of cicadas beginning their evening song. This was the sort of comforting, sleepy moment that I cherished. I remember the kettle boiling softly on the stove, its steam curling up toward the ceiling, while I poured hot water over the fragrant tea leaves that danced and swirled in my favorite mug. The inviting aroma filled the room, mingling with the smell of the crusty loaf cooling on the counter, a reward from earlier that afternoon. As I settled into my worn but cozy armchair, the cushions cradling me just right, I thought back to the little cafe where I had spent many afternoons with my friend Leo. A place filled with laughter, warmth, and life. It was nestled right on the corner of a tree-lined street, where the leaves would turn to brilliant shades of orange and gold each autumn, painting a picturesque scene you could almost get lost in. The cafe had mismatched furniture, and the owner, a woman named May, made the best blueberry muffins you could ever imagine. On that particular day, I remember Leo and I had found a corner table by the window. Just the two of us, sharing stories and looking out at the world with the sun's golden glow warming our faces. Leo had that infectious sort of laugh, the kind that drew the attention of everyone around us. But mostly, it made me feel at home. We were deep in conversation about work and life, those ordinary subjects that sometimes felt so heavy. He leaned in closer, lowering his voice to share something that had been weighing on his mind. For as long as I had known him, Leo had always been the kind of person who cared deeply about justice and kindness. But lately, he had been facing an uncomfortable situation at the architecture firm where he worked. There was a new manager, an ambitious fellow named Barry, whose idea of leadership seemed to revolve around a singular focus: profit at any cost. Barry had no qualms about belittling his team, throwing around harsh words like confetti, leaving Leo and his colleagues feeling disheartened and demoralized. As Leo recounted the latest incident, I could see a cloud of frustration hovering over him like a dark rain cloud waiting to burst. Barry had dismissed a brilliant design idea that Leo had slaved over for weeks, calling it a waste of time. It stung more than a little, especially because Leo had put so much of himself into that work, pouring the late nights and early mornings into developing a concept he believed in. I could hear the hurt in his voice as he explained that his colleagues had been too intimidated to speak up, each of them a little demoralized and feeling isolated, like tiny boats bobbing in a stormy sea. "Why do you let him get to you?" I asked, my voice gentle. "You're so talented, Leo. You know that. It's just one person." He sighed deeply, his shoulders dropping in defeat, but I could see the spark of resolve in his eyes. He whispered softly, "I want to do something about it, but I don't know what." We sat for a moment, sipping our tea, the silence wrapping around us like a cozy blanket. I could feel his wheels turning, searching for a way to rise above the situation. It was in that moment I sensed something shifting within him, a quiet determination that perhaps he could find his footing amid the turmoil. As we continued to talk, the afternoon waned into evening, the sunlight growing softer and softer. Leo suddenly leaned back in his chair with a mischievous grin. "You know what I'm going to do," he began, his eyes twinkling. "I'm going to gather my ideas, collect feedback from everyone, and present them to Barry all at once. If we all stand together, he can't brush us off, right?" Then I admired his spirit, and we brainstormed as the light faded outside, discussing how he might frame his proposal and encouragement for his colleagues to join in. By the time we left the cafe, the twilight had taken over, wrapping us in its relaxing embrace. Days turned to weeks, and I was on the edge of my seat, waiting to hear about Leo's plan taking shape. Each time we met for tea or caught up over the phone, he would report back with snippets of progress, as steps forward turned into momentum. Leo had approached his colleagues, one by one, chatting softly, sharing ideas and listening to their concerns. As they began to support one another, the atmosphere in the office shifted, overtaking the dull weight of Barry's negativity. I remember one crisp morning when Leo called to share the big news. He had secured a meeting with Barry. I could almost hear the excitement bubbling in his voice. "I told them all to come prepared, and they did. I think we'll shot at this. Nani?" As the date of the meeting approached, the firm buzzed with anticipation. I could hardly contain my own excitement, having watched Leo rally his colleagues and inspire a newfound confidence among them. The day arrived, and I felt like I could almost sense the energy in the air, like the calm before a lovely evening rain. When Leo called later that day, his voice sounded different, lighter, almost buoyant. "You wouldn't believe it. We presented our ideas together, and Barry listened." "He really listened," he said, a wave of disbelief in his tone. There was hesitation as he continued. "He didn't blow us off. In fact, he asked for a follow-up next week." "Nee. I'll." The joy in his voice hitched a smile onto my face, and I could almost hear the clamor of his colleagues in the background, erupting in cheers as they, too, celebrated. The weight of those weeks seemed to lift away, replaced by a glimmer of hope, a solid connection forged among them. As we continued to talk, I could hear the laughter of his coworkers in the background, the echo of their support wrapping around us like a warm embrace. The cafe, the tea, the sunlight. I felt like I was part of a beautiful tapestry woven with threads of friendship and determination. Days turned back to weeks, and again I found myself in that cozy armchair by the window, listening to the patter of rain against the glass, drawing me into a gentle lull. I could picture Leo standing before Barry again, the room colored by the glow of midday sunlight filtering through the blinds. The dynamics of the office began to shift, as if a breeze had swept in, carrying away the heaviness and replacing it with laughter and collaboration. Barry, it turned out, was responsive to the suggestions. The design started to flourish again, each meeting fostering a sense of camaraderie that had been absent before. I smiled, knowing Leo's courage had sparked a change, and all their voices had found a place in the narrative of that little firm. As I sat there, the rain drumming a soft rhythm on the roof, I let my mind drift back to those moments shared in the cafe, the warmth of friendship wrapping around us, like the last rays of setting sun. In those quiet moments before sleep, I felt a sense of gratitude wash over me. Gratitude for the small joys, for tea shared, for laughter echoing through those open spaces, and for the quiet bravery that lay within each of us. The world outside my window began to fade, the rain creating a soothing lullaby as I pulled the blanket a little tighter around myself. The shadows grew longer, and the warmth of the kitchen lingered in my heart. Closing my eyes, I took one last deep breath, feeling the day settle into a gentle stillness, grateful for the quiet strength we carry within us. And I let the whispers of sleep pull me gently away. And now, our next story. The morning light slanted softly through the sheer curtains, casting delicate patterns on the worn wooden table, each gentle geometric shape shifting with the breeze. I could smell the comforting aroma of coffee brewing in the kitchen, mingling with the faint sweetness of leftover pancakes from the night before. The air was thick with the cozy warmth of a Saturday morning, a stillness broken only by the distant chirping of the birds outside, each note puncturing the soft silence like a gentle nudge. I settled into my favorite chair, a faded armchair with little tufts that had long since lost their bounce, and wrapped my hands around a steaming mug. The warmth seeped into my palms, grounding me in the moment, and I took a moment to simply breathe. This was my ritual, a slow, unhurried embrace of a new day. I could hear the occasional rustle as my cat, Oliver, stretched lazily on the sun-warmed floor, his purring a soft, rhythmic hum that filled the air with a sense of contentment. On days like this, I often found myself reflecting on the little things, the unremarkable moments that stitched together the tapestry of my life. I thought back to the previous autumn when a gentle stranger had stepped into my world, a quiet presence who, like me, had often felt more comfortable in the background. Her name was Eleanor. We met at the local bookstore, where the air was fragrant with the scent of old pages and new beginnings. I was browsing the poetry section, drawn into the quiet melancholy of words that seemed to echo my own unspoken thoughts. Eleanor had been standing nearby, lost in a collection of letters from a poet I had only half-heartedly heard of, her dark curls falling softly around her face, framing her light brown eyes like quiet revelations. We exchanged the briefest of smiles, each of us hesitant yet curious, our shared moment as fleeting as the flutter of a page caught in a drop. I noted the way she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear, an unconscious gesture that felt both familiar and endearing. Gradually, our paths began to cross more often. We both had a tendency to linger in the quiet corners of the bookstore, lost in our thoughts and the comforting embrace of stories. Our conversations unfolded gently, like the dawn breaking over a still lake. We talked about books, sharing our favorites and the small quotes that lingered in our minds long after we had turned the last page. There was an ease to our exchanges, punctuated by soft laughter and comfortable silences filled with understanding. One afternoon, with the golden light filtering in through the tall windows, she mentioned a summer she had spent by the coast, a small cottage with creaky floors and a view of the endless ocean. I could see the warmth in her eyes as she spoke of the sunsets that melted into the horizon, painting the sky in hues of apricot and lavender. She spoke passionately about the sound of the waves colliding against the rocks, a rhythmic melody that soothed her restless spirit. Something about her words struck a chord deep within me, a longing for simplicity and connection that felt both familiar and achingly beautiful. As autumn deepened, our friendship blossomed in unhurried ways, like the slow turning of leaves. We often exchanged shy, lingering glances, a silent acknowledgement of something unspoken, yet profound. There was a particular evening when we had wandered into a small cafe tucked away on a side street, the scent of freshly baked pastries hanging in the air like an invitation. The soft chatter of other patrons surrounded us, creating a bubble of warmth. We chose a small table by the window, the world outside cloaked in the golden hues of dusk. Eleanor ordered a slice of pie, apple, if memory serves me right, with a dollop of cream, while I opted for a cup of chamomile tea, feeling the gentle warmth seep into my bones. We shared stories, our voices drifting like smoke, rising and curling into the soft light. I remember how she laughed quietly at my ill-fated attempts at baking, her laughter like the tinkling of tiny bells, soothing and sweet. With every smile, every shared moment, we wove a delicate thread between us, something that felt both fragile and strong. Yet, as the weeks passed, I found myself wrestling with a quiet uncertainty. My heart danced around the edges of something deeper, but I hesitated, uncertain if she felt the same. It was a gnawing worry, one that kept itself tucked away in the corners of my mind. I didn't want to disrupt the gentle rhythm we had created, the beautiful simplicity of our connection. One evening, as the first frost began to paint the windows with delicate patterns, we took a walk through the park. The world around us was hushed, and the air carried a crispness that made everything feel like a new beginning. We ambled slowly, our breath visible in the air, and talked about hopes and dreams, the kind of conversations that felt like secrets shared in the fading light. I noticed the way the moon cast a silver glow on her skin, illuminating her features with an ethereal beauty that stole my breath. As we paused by a fountain, the water glistening in the moonlight, I turned to her, my heart racing slightly as I mustered the courage to speak. "Eleanor," I began, my voice barely above a whisper, "there's something I need to say." The words lingered in the air between us, and I could see her watching me closely, those gentle brown eyes filled with curiosity and a hint of concern. But before I could continue, she tilted her head slightly, an expression of understanding blooming on her face. "You're not the only one with something to share," she said softly, and her words hung in the air like a promise. My heart soared at her admission, and in that stillness, we both felt it. The unshapable bond that had formed between us, delicate as gossamer yet resilient. That conversation, shared under the gentle embrace of stars, marked a quiet turning point in our lives. From then on, we navigated our connection with newfound openness, allowing love to seep into the soft spaces between our words. Weekend mornings began to fill with laughter shared over pancakes. Evenings wandered through crisp autumn streets, hands brushing together with a shiver of electricity. Moments of vulnerability became moments of strength. It was a tender embrace of two souls finding solace in one another. But there were times, too, when we drifted into familiar silences, not uncomfortable but filled with unspoken understanding. I remember one such afternoon, sitting in my small kitchen, the scent of garlic sautéing in a pan, mixing with the sweet warmth of freshly baked bread. The sun caught the edges of the room, creating a cocoon of light that felt sacred. Eleanor was perched on the corner of the kitchen island, her laughter mingling with the soft music playing in the background. "Do you ever think about what it would be like if we hadn't met?" she mused, her voice thoughtful, an echo of our quiet reflections. I glanced up from my cutting board, pausing mid-chop, and caught the look of gentle wonder on her face. "You know," I began, a smile playing at the corner of my lips, "I think of that all the time. I would likely still be wandering through life's pages, searching for a kindred spirit amongst the shelves." "No, and..." Her eyes sparkled in response, a spark of mischief lighting them up. "You'd be hopeless," she teased lightly, and we both laughed, the sound wrapping around us in a warm embrace. That small moment felt like a soft exhale, a gentle recognition of how our lives had intertwined in the most beautiful way, like two vines climbing up a trellis, growing together rather than apart. As our days slipped into weeks, I could feel that familiar warmth settle in the corners of my heart, a deep sense of gratitude for the love that had blossomed so unexpectedly. Eleanor and I often found ourselves comfortably wrapped up in one another's presence, sharing stories until the late hours of the night. the world growing quieter around us. Her laughter became a balm, soothing wounds I didn't even know were there, and we became each other's safe place to land. One evening, as winter began to whisper its arrival, we took a quiet stroll beneath a canopy of bare branches. The air held a certain stillness, a peaceful hush that felt like a secret shared only with the moon. We paused under a large oak tree, its gnarled branches stretching out like open arms, and I turned to Eleanor, feeling the soft urgency pulling at my heart. "I'm glad we met," I said, my voice steady yet tender as I searched her gaze. Her expression softened, and in that moment, it felt as though everything else faded into the background. The cold, the quiet world around us. She took a small step closer, her breath swirling amongst the frosty air. "I am too," she replied, a gentle smile dancing across her lips, illuminating the space between us. And in that unguarded moment, the world felt expansive, infinite. The small uncertainties that had once tugged at my heart faded away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of belonging, of two introverts weaving their way into one another's lives with the most tender of threads, stitching together a pattern of love that felt as ancient as time itself. In the months that followed, our lives continued to intertwine, our love growing quietly, like the first shoots of spring breaking through the winter soil. We shared countless afternoons, cozy in the glow of a lamplight, wrapped in blankets and laughter, or ventured out into the bustling little town for spontaneous adventures. Each moment felt like a cherished memory, a quiet treasure tucked into the corners of our hearts. Eventually, I found myself awake one gentle morning, the light pouring through the curtains like a warm embrace, the world outside alive with the symphony of birds. There was a sense of calm enveloping the room, a quiet anticipation that felt electric. As I sat at the kitchen table, sipping my coffee, I thought back to that moment under the oak tree and smiled softly to myself. Our lives had become a shared narrative, intertwined with the beauty of each unremarkable day, a soft tapestry stitched together with the threads of love and laughter. And as I caught sight of Eleanor, still cocooned in the warmth of sleep on the couch, I felt a swell of gratitude, etched with love for the gentle journey we were taking together. In the stillness of that peaceful morning, I knew that even amidst the quiet, life blossoms with possibility. As the sun climbed higher, I savored the beauty of simply being, content in the knowledge that love, in its sweetest form, is often quietly found in the spaces between our words and shared moments. With that thought enveloping my heart, I settled back into the soft embrace of the chair, the rhythmic sound of Oliver's purring lulling me into tranquility, feeling the warmth wrap around me like the softest blanket on a cool night. The world outside continued on its gentle course, and I found solace in the stillness, grateful for the simple joys that filled my heart and those moments when we could just be. I closed my eyes, surrendering to the lull of the day, wrapped warmly in love's quiet embrace. And that's the last story for tonight. You've traveled a long way to get here, through 5 quiet worlds, 5 small lives, 5 gentle resolutions. Your breathing is slower now. Your body is heavy and warm. There's nothing left to think about. Just the quiet. Just the dark. Just rest. Good night.